Good afternoon, everyone. This is Manish from EK Energy Services Limited. I'm going to cover today more information or detailed information related to the carbon markets, either it's a voluntary carbon market or the compliance carbon market. I will start with the basic definition related to the carbon credit, what is global warming, and then we'll look up into more advanced topics specifically related to the Paris Agreement, related to the India's compliance carbon market, which is CCTS carbon credit trading scheme, India's voluntary carbon market, that is offset mechanism, and the international voluntary carbon markets. So there are four different layers I will going to cover during this session. So about EKI, our brand name is Enking International and company name is EK Energy Services Limited, which is listed at BSE. It is one of the world's largest carbon offset project developer and supplier, and having 3,000 plus clients, and we are into this industry for last 16 years. So if you are looking to get this PPT, don't hurry to click the slides. To get the copy, just scan this QR code and you will be able to get the same at your email. The QR code you will be able to see at the bottom of the PPT on many slides. So coming over, we all know what is the meaning of what is greenhouse, what are the greenhouse gases and what is a greenhouse gas effect. So if you see this specific part of the slide wherein natural greenhouse gas effect is very, very important for us to survive on the planet Earth, because during the daytime, the greenhouse gases, which are carbon dioxide, methane, and HFC, PFC, N2, SF6, NF3, these are the 7 greenhouse gases, are very, very important for us to survive on the planet Earth, because during the daytime, all these 7 greenhouse gases used to absorb heat, which is being emitted back by the earth to the atmosphere, and during the night time, whatever the heat that has been retained by all these 7 greenhouse gases comes back towards the earth once the temperature at the earth's surface is very, very less. But because of the enhanced human enhanced greenhouse gas effect, or human enhanced emission related to the 7 greenhouse gases, more and more concentration of the 7 greenhouse gases is adding into the atmosphere, particularly carbon dioxide, and more heat is getting retained within the atmosphere. And that is why we are struggling with the issue called as global warming. And this global warming is resulting into the climate change. And how this climate change can be tackled by the companies or by the nations. So we had one international treaty called as Kyoto Protocol that had been came into the force during 2005, and the Kyoto Protocol had been negotiated during year 1997. So under that Kyoto Protocol, it had been mentioned that all developed nations are responsible for the global warming and they should reduce their emissions. And if they would not be able to do, then they can buy carbon credits, which is 1 ton CO2 equivalent emission reduction or removal from the atmosphere. If any nation will do buy the credits originated from other developing nations specifically, because there were 3 mechanisms that had been negotiated under Article 12 of the Kyoto Protocol. One was CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, joint JI, joint implementation, and third one was IT international trading. So since India from 2005 to 2020, we do not have any obligation, and we were considered as one of the nation wherein we can develop the project and sell the credits in the form of certified emission reduction, that means through CDM mechanism, to the other developed nations. So that is how this whole carbon markets had got started within India, and we were the seller nation. We were the second largest seller in this specific market. Afterwards, from 2015 onwards, the voluntary carbon markets got its good shape and size. So I will do cover more about the same. So if you see this specific slide, wherein you will be able to recognize what is the exact problem and how peculiar that specific problem is. If you see the 0 degree centigrade pre-industrial average temperature was there before, say, industrialization, and under the Paris Agreement, all nations had negotiated that we should limit the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade. It should not go more than 2 degrees centigrade. For that, all nations had submitted their NDC goals, National Determined Contribution Goal, wherein nations, if you Google India's NDC, then you would be able to see how Indian government is looking to reduce nations' emission by year 2070, because Indian government had declared that we wish to become net zero nation by year 2070. So if all nations would not do anything, then 3.3 degrees centigrade temperature rise is going to happen before the end of the century. And if all the nations, with whatever the NDCs that they had submitted, if they will do whatever they had mentioned or not mentioned, then 3 degrees centigrade temperature is the obvious temperature that is going to happen before the end of the century. And we do have the goal to reach to 1.5 degrees centigrade and should not be more than 2 degrees centigrade. And already during 2019, we had achieved was looking to see the pointer, but not able to find the same. So during 2019, 1 degree centigrade temperature we already had achieved, and during 2023-2024, 1.1 degree centigrade temperature is the temperature rise we already had attained. So there is a huge ambitious NDCs or voluntary pledges are being required by all the nations, so that we would be able to achieve this 1.5 degree centigrade temperature goal target under the Paris Agreement. So these are all the 7 greenhouse gases which I already mentioned, and the definition of 1 ton, 1 carbon credit is 1 ton equivalent CO2, 1 ton CO2 equivalent emission reduction, either avoidance or absorption or removal from the atmosphere is 1 carbon credit, and it is an environmental commodity which is traded globally, and it is being considered as one of the biggest commodity sector to grow in this century. There are 2 different words we refer very frequently. One is the carbon neutrality, and another one is the net zero goal. So any company who is looking to achieve this carbon neutrality or net zero goal, first they have to determine their carbon footprint. Second thing, they have to reduce as much as they can, and for the residual emissions, they should buy the credits so that they would be able to achieve their carbon neutrality or net zero goals. And we do have 2 different types of carbon credits which are available under Article 6, or you can say the international national voluntary carbon markets. One is the avoidance-based carbon credits, and another one is the removal-based carbon credits. So the projects like solar power project or wind, hydro, energy efficiency, improved cook stoves, or RED Plus projects, all those projects comes under the category of avoidance or reduction-based carbon credits, because this kind of projects are helping to avoid getting CO2 emitted into the atmosphere. That is why we call such kind of credits as the avoidance-based carbon credits. And removal-based carbon credits means if actually we are helping to remove the carbon dioxide which is already there into the atmosphere, and so we will be able to gain the removal-based carbon credits. So if you want to achieve net zero goals, only removal-based carbon credits are eligible to achieve that specific goal, and if you want to become carbon neutral, then you can buy any of the 2. There are 2 different markets, as I mentioned earlier. One is the voluntary carbon markets, can again be divided into 2, international and national, and one is compliance carbon market, again can be divided into 2. One is national compliance market. In India, it is CCTS, Carbon Credit Trading Scheme under Energy Conservation Act 22, and in next 2 to 3 months timeline, we should be able to get the complete list of 9 sectoral companies wherein they would get the target to reduce their emissions, or they have to the capping target would be given by Bureau of Energy Efficiency to all those 9 sectoral companies, and they can trade the credits if they would be able to achieve whatever the benchmark, if it's being given to them, then and if their performance is less than the same, that specific benchmark, then the carbon credits would be issued to them. And if they are emitting more as compared to the benchmark, then the carbon credits, they need to buy it, and would be traded over the exchanges, power exchanges. Another voluntary carbon market is again coming up in India, called as offset mechanism, again under the same Energy Conservation Act 22, wherein the non-obligated entities, they can buy the credits, they can sell the credits based on the methodologies or the program which Bureau of Energy Efficiency is developing. The other international compliance markets we do have is CORSIA, wherein international airlines, they do have target to become carbon neutral from 1 January 21. Under the CORSIA, although under the CBAM, although it is not an international treaty, but that is the imposed tax over high emitting products which are going to the European borders, and so CBAM means Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, wherein if any company which is located in any developing or developed nation, if they are emitting more than the benchmark which is being given by, and which would be given by the European Union, then they have to buy carbon credits originated from only European Union borders. That means EUAs, called as European Union allowances, which do have a trade price in between 70 to 100 euros per credit. So this is the specific different kinds of carbon markets wherein the buyers, sellers do exist, and these are the 170 different types of sectors are there wherein the carbon credits used to get generated. So the major difference between the compliance markets, India's compliance market and Article 6 compliance market and voluntary carbon market, is the India's compliance market work on the company target level basis, while the voluntary and Article 6 market works on the project basis. So for example, NTPC do have many thermal power plants and many solar power plants, and if the solar power plant is being allowed under Article 6 or voluntary carbon market, then they can sell carbon credits originated from that specific solar power plant. But if you do consider the whole overall emissions of NTPC, then they would be the net emitter. They would not be able to sell the credits if the specific target which would be given to them by Government of India is more than the benchmark. So under the voluntary carbon markets, these are all the standards which are quite famous. One is verified carbon standard based at USA, gold standard at Switzerland. IREX is again one of the environmental commodity which is being traded at a more or faster liquidity these days. The upcoming carbon markets which are there in India are Article 6.2 and Article 6.4. So under Article 6.2, Indian government is going to have an MOU with Japanese, Korean, and to initiate with Japanese, Korean, and Singaporean government, wherein we will do, both the nations will do sign the MOU, and the investors may come for the 14 different technologies which had been informed by Indian government to United Nations, which includes renewable energy with storage, solar cooking, not specifically solar cooking, but clean cooking. So solar cooking obviously is the sub-part of that specific 12th number technology. Then green hydrogen, green ammonia, solar thermal power generation. So these are there are many other technologies which comes under that, specifically 14 different sectoral technologies. Similarly, for Article 6.4, which is pending to get negotiated under various COPs. So during this COP 29 at Azerbaijan, that means at Baku, if all the negotiations would be done at that specific meeting, then Article 6.4 carbon markets will do also start from the upcoming calendar year. There are various other carbon credit standards which do exist across the globe, either at the national level or either at the regional level. So like ISO 14064 is there, TIGR, W plus a standard social carbon, whereas SG Vista, World Bank Forest Carbon Facility, Partnership Facility is there, where VCS Verified Carbon Standard, the Climate Registry, and various different programs are there. In our regional compliance carbon market or international voluntary carbon market. So this is the professional procedure wherein if someone will get registration, then they are eligible to get the issuance of the credits which can be traded globally. So if you see the first number step, which is having background of violet color, so it's the implementation of the project activity. The second step is the validation and verification activity, which is having background of orange color. Then at the bottom, green background color blocks do mention related to the monitoring activity that we need to do. And at last, trading used to happen at point number or step number 4. That means finding buyer, sign contract with them, and sell the credits and get the revenue. So this is the specific professional procedure for Article 6 carbon market projects or national or international voluntary carbon market projects. So why carbon market is important? Because for any nation, since they do have target to reduce their emissions and become net zero nation, so they do have two options, either to put or implement a carbon tax mechanism, which Singaporean government or South African government had opted for the same. And if it's an industrialized nation, for example, mid-level or high or low, then emission trading scheme is the most popular or most famous scheme which usually nations used to offer. And if you see European Union ETS, which had been started during year 2005, so this EU ETS is having the overall market size of around 900 billion within European Union, and similarly Korea ETS, which had got started during year 2015, do have the around 100 odd billion market cap. So overall, these two markets accounting to make $1 trillion carbon credit market only because of these two nations' compliance carbon market. While India is one of the third largest emitter, China is the first, second one is USA, and all three cumulatively, approximately we do emit almost 50% global greenhouse gas emissions. So the markets in India, China, and America jointly will do cross multi-trillion-dollar industry in next 5 to 10 years. The solution is the 4-layer market. One is the compliance carbon market at the national and international level. Third one is voluntary at the national and international. Fourth one is the international voluntary carbon markets. This is the history of our carbon market, which used to start from year 1992 with the formation of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Then, if you see the middle line, which mentions the year, at the upside, the compliance markets do exist, either national or international, and at the bottom side of this specific black line, the voluntary carbon markets used to exist. So the ACR and CR American standards came in early 20, then gold standard, VCS, and various further standards are upcoming. India's, if you see at the last, India's voluntary and compliance carbon market are also now upcoming, and definitely it will do support not only India but across the globe to stabilize or to attain high growth for the carbon markets at the compliance or voluntary sector. So Kyoto Protocol already we have discussed. It came into the force from 2005, and all binding goals were there over the developed nations. The first phase was from 2008 to 12. The second phase was from 13 to 20, and now we are there into the Paris Agreement era, wherein all the nations are equally responsible. So the major difference between Kyoto and Paris is in Paris Agreement era, all nations, which is either small or large or developing, developed, and economies under transition, or maybe small island group, all nations are equally responsible to reduce their emission, and all nations should, in a way, should reduce their emissions so that the whole world would be able to attain net zero emission goal by year 2050. Although Chinese government had declared that they wish to support this net zero goal by 2060 and Indian government by 2070. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement mentions that if any nation would not be able to achieve their NDC targets, then they can buy carbon credits originated from other developing or developed nation. And there are two different markets, 6.2 and 6.4, which comes under this specific section. This is the India's NDC, wherein we wish to increase the share of non-fossil fuels based power plants to 40% of the total installed generation capacity, and 1 or 2 years back it had been updated to 50%. Second one is to reduce the emission intensity of the economy by 33 to 35% by 2030 from 2005 level, and which is being updated to 45%, and to create additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2, and we wish to become net zero nation by year 2070. So in India, the designated national authority is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So whatever the concerns which are there related to the international climate change aspects, MOFCC is responsible. For the national, for the establishment of national carbon markets, or either compliance or voluntary, Bureau of Energy Efficiency under Ministry of Power is the administrator or responsible organization within India. Coming over, during the Kyoto Protocol era, we had the one department called as NCDMA. And now, under the Paris Agreement era, we do have Apex Committee for Implementation of the Paris Agreement. So already in India, we can see two established schemes. One is the Renewable Purchase Obligation Act, and another one is Perform, Achieve, and Trade Mechanism. So these two schemes are going to get merged in next 2 to 5 years timeline within CCTS, Carbon Credit Trading Scheme, wherein the carbon credits again would be calculated in terms of CO2 equivalent, but would be called as CCC, Carbon Credit Certifications. And voluntary carbon markets, as I mentioned earlier, called as offset mechanism, is going to get implemented very soon. The fourth number scheme, so during the last slide, we have gone through CCTS, offset mechanism, RPO, and PAT. So these are the 4 different schemes which would do run in parallel. And slowly it may get merged in next 2 to 5 years timeline. Further, the fifth one is the green credit program, wherein government do have very ambitious target to allow trade ecosystem services. So these are the 8 different types of green credits which would be allowed to get traded within India. So first one is the tree plantation based green credits, water based sustainable agriculture, waste management, air pollution reduction, mangroves, ecomark based, just I think 15-20 days ecomark based rules. All the full notification had been released by MOFCC, and CPCB is going to be the implementing agency for this specific ecomark rule scheme in India. Which is quite similar to the eco-label scheme which we see across the globe. Sustainable building and infrastructure base. So the full guidelines we do have at the present point in time is related to the first one is that is tree plantation based green credits, and ICF RE at Dehradun is the implementing agency under MOFCC for this specific scheme. So this scheme comes under lifestyle for environment campaign, and government do have very ambitious target uh, to propagate this specific scheme across the globe, similar to ISA and International Biofuel Alliance. Potential of the carbon market. So this is the summary. If you see at the bottom, we do have a global target under the Paris Agreement and limiting global temperature to 1.5 or 2 degrees centigrade. Annually, 52 to 58 billion tons of carbon dioxide reduction or removal is required to achieve this specific goal, and international carbon markets are going to support to the nations who would not be able to achieve their goals under the Paris Agreement. At the middle, if you see country level targets, that means the NDCs are there, wherein all the nations are working to develop their policies, domestic carbon markets, develop market related to the ITMO. ITMO is again internationally traded mitigation outcome. So that is the terminology we use for the credits originated under Article 6.2 mechanism. And if you see at the top organizational level target, so all the obligated entities starting with large emitters, then it will go to the mid-level SMEs also. So they have to calculate their GHG footprint or GHG accounting they need to do on annual basis, implement mitigation projects, use voluntary carbon markets, use Article 6.2 market, 6.4 market, voluntary market, non-market approaches, that means Article 6.8. And if you see at the out of this specific pyramid or all the blocks, here aviation and maritime industry is going to get their own targets in the format of CORSIA, and maritime sector, they do not have any specific such kind of international treaty, but probably in next 2-3 years they must be having some specific scheme to reduce their emission under the maritime transportation sector. These are all the demand drivers under the carbon markets for the voluntary and for the compliance. So for the compliance, obviously, because you are obligated entity and you have to reduce your emission under any specific compliance, then these are the demand drivers like domestic carbon markets or Article 6 market or CORSIA. Under the voluntary carbon markets, there are various reasons wherein the buyers at the national or international level buy the credits. So first one is if they have signed the carbon neutrality pledge or carbon positivity pledge or RE100 or CSR pledges. So these are all the reasons wherein they buy the credits. And at the last, if you see the investors which do consider this carbon credits as an investment class, they are investing into the projects, they are investing into the directly carbon credits. So we do have EKI do have various investors like Vitol, wherein we had developed $20 million energy efficient cook stove project for them. For Shell, we do have a joint venture company wherein we are developing various agroforestry projects within Indian geographical boundary. So this is the overall market size, wherein at present for the voluntary carbon markets, the market is less than $2 billion, but it is being anticipated by various investment organization or research organization that this specific less than $2 billion market size will do reach in between $10 to $200 billion by 2030. While compliance carbon market is already there into the $1 trillion industry, and definitely it will do attain multi-trillion in coming few years. So for the sellers within India, these are all the different options wherein they can buy and sell the environmental commodities. There is some problem with this slide. These are all the supply chain stakeholders within the carbon markets. CBAM and CORSIA, they are going to come up with their new regulations, their new guidelines in coming few months, and similarly the future markets related to plastic, biodiversity and adaptation is there into the development. Either as of now they are at the nascent stage, but in coming few years, they will also attain very good traction or momentum. Already in the developed economies, such kind of credits are taking their good shape and size, but across the globe, such kind of markets will do develop in coming few years. To regulate our carbon markets, we do have two different agencies. One is ICVCM and another one is the VCMI. And the updated regulations are coming up, as already mentioned, related to CCTS offset mechanism, green credit program, CBAM, CORSIA. So the last slide of mine, carbon credit industry is going to be the biggest commodity sector to grow in this century, and going to be the multi-trillion-dollar industry to save living beings to survive on the planet Earth, because all nations do have high ambition to increase their GDP. And if they will grow their GDP, more and more emissions will come into the atmosphere. So carbon markets definitely will grow to more than the oil and gas sector in coming few years. So about our products and services, we do work with the seller of the credits, we do work with the buyer of credits, we do work with the investors. These are all the services we do have. We do support various organizations to do their sustainability reporting, sustainability related services we also give to them. And finally, we do supply them carbon credits to achieve their carbon neutrality and net zero goals. These are all few of our subsidiaries. Coming to the final slide of mine, these are all few of our clients. Yeah, thank you.